And welcome. Here we go. We're going to remove the tomato. We're back here with well, I guess we'll call it the big tomato. The big tomato. I don't know if that's a good one or not, but hey, we want to welcome everybody to today's edition of Tomato Talk. We're going to be talking about content today. Yeah, I'm going to put on the radio voice there a little bit more so. That's right, content. Content. Where do you get your content from? Well, it's pretty easy. You just hire an expert. Wait a second. Hold on. Let's start all this over again. Wait, whoa. What do you mean hire an expert? You can't just do that. Not all the time, at least. I mean, look, you're thinking about doing a podcast, right? Yeah, that's a cool thing. It's not that hard. It's easy. It's easy. There's very few things you need to do. It's just easy. Maybe it's not as easy as one would say. Coming up with content, it's easy. Piece of cake. All you need to do is spend 30, 40 years in an industry. Wait a second. What if you're newer? What if you're starting a new enterprise? What if you're 5 years into it? What are you going to say? Hey, I'm just started this new project and I'm an expert. Hmm. Can't really do that now, can you? Because people are going to say, man, you're just not authentic. So what do you do? What do you do? I'm going to tell you what I'm doing for a new project. Let me tell you, I'm bringing in the experts because I'm not an expert in it. And that's fine. That is fine. It's not my focus, we'll say. But darn, having a good time doing it. Want to be as good as I possibly can on that project. We'll share that one a little bit later, but that'd be a good one. But what about you? What about this story? What about the brand? What about this content? What about the delivery? All the rest of that stuff. Well, let's start off over to you today with a brief video from our friend Arthur Germain over at Brand Telling. And let's get his thoughts here as to what his strategy is when it comes to objectives and tactics. Arthur, what do you say? Let's get this in line here. We're going to do a little share screen. We're going to bring up Chrome tab. That would be the brand telling. We share it and let's play it up. We got 2 minutes here with Arthur.
Everyone knows the difference between strategy, objectives, and tactics, right? Then why do so many marketing meetings start out discussing strategy and end up talking about ring lights for TikTok? I'm Arthur Germain, and welcome back to the Brand Telling Podcast. I help startups and grow-ups establish, strengthen, and promote their brands for stronger customer relationships and bigger sales. Today, I'm going to share the difference between strategy, objectives, and tactics. And then I'm going to share an easy trick to make sure you're always thinking about these three things the right way. Strategy is why you're marketing yourself in the first place. It's what you want your marketing to achieve. It's your plan of action. Objectives are the measurable goals for your marketing activities. And tactics are all the activities that you undertake to achieve your strategy and objectives. It's the place most people start, but it really shouldn't be. To help keep things clear, I often start with the 5 W's, and I split these up on a whiteboard. Strategy is the why that you're launching a campaign. Objectives are what you want to measure and achieve. And tactics are the who, the where, and the when activities in your campaign. You can read more about how to put this all together at the link below on LinkedIn at bit.ly/brandtelling-li-01.
Thank you there, Arthur. Definitely appreciate those comments. And now the question really is here is to why? What is the strategy? What are you trying to accomplish? Well, my side of it, when it comes to you thinking about doing a podcast of your own, a YouTube videos of your own, or even if you're just doing social media content, you want to put out some information on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. I wouldn't go monthly. It's a little too far, right? And how do you get people's attention? You want to build a following, stuff like that. So it's either daily or weekly. Consistent, though. Really consistent. It's like, wow. How do you do that? How do you put all this stuff together? Well, we're going to go back to comedy again here. Yeah, I know. You might think that's a little bit off, but you want to know something? It's not. Judy Carter. Judy Carter is a comic. I've actually never met the woman. She's got a book. It's all about comedy, and I'm going to put a post up over here. I'll share the screen this way you can see this thing. And she teaches people how to be comedians. I'm not asking you to become a comedian. I'm not looking for you to hire her as a trainer for you to become a comic or anything like that. But there was one tidbit of information that I thought was very useful and applicable in your desire to create content. Because you want to be seen as the expert, right? Or you share your expertise. Again, we can't share the fact that you're only new in the business or you're only there for 5 years. Somebody else is going, oh, I've been there for 20 years. I must know more. Maybe, maybe not. You never know. But it's really not so much as how long you've been working at something. It's a matter of how are you perceived, that brand? How are you perceived? Are you perceived as having expertise? Are you perceived as being a resource? Are you perceived as being approachable and having content that is deliverable to your clientele, not that other person's clientele, but yours, as you continue to build your own business and attract clients that are appropriate for you. So what did Judy say? Judy's comment was, to become a comic, here's what you need to do. You carry a notepad with you. Always carry a notepad with you. I wound up doing that. Carry my little notepad. She said, anytime you make somebody laugh, regardless of whatever it is, write it down. And if you don't write it down, at the end of the day, you're going to forget what it was. You'll write it down. Now, again, we're not going to try to become comics over here. But if you want to, you can reach out to Judy and a number of other folks along the way. But here's what I want you to do. Carry the book with you. Now, when someone asks you a question about your business, write it down. If someone asks you a question about your industry, write it down. If you run across an interesting fact about your industry, write it down. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to fill up that book of yours. You're going to fill up that book of yours with all kinds of comments. Some of them are going to be factual comments. The automotive industry is going through a massive change, and over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see a massive increase in the amount of electric cars. Okay. Better if you use the statistic. I don't have it right off the top of my head, but it is. That's interesting. So if you're in the automotive industry, that's interesting. So you might want to phrase it like this if you have a client that continues to ask about the thing. Client comes to you and says, the automotive industry is going through massive changes over the next 5 to 10 years. Car sales are going to increase, or electric car sales are going to increase. How's that going to impact your business? There, my friends, is a question. Now, if that one person is asking the question, that's good. But if you get that same question from 2 or 3 people, now all of a sudden you got a topic. So you want to track that one too. How many people are asking you the same kind of question? It doesn't have to be exact. This is not an exact science here. But if you're in the automotive industry, whatever, be insurance, repair, whatever, doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. Or in any, in your industry, if you're getting the same question from your clients, prospects, friends, anybody, and they're asking you a common question, you now have something that you could talk about. So you keep that list in there, and you continue to make that list, and you do it for a while. You get a lot of questions, even better. If you got info at whatever your business is and you're getting a lot of these questions, use those questions. If your employees are getting questions, use those questions. Collect them all. Put it right next to that suggestion box. Say, hey, this is the question box. This is the question I got today. It was a good one. This is the question I got today. Not so good. But I've gotten that question a couple of times. So that is something of interest to a larger group of people. So you've got it in your book over here. Here's what you're going to do. If you want to do a podcast, or if you want to do social media posting, or if you want to do a little 2-minute video each and every week about, these are the questions I received this week, or this week's top question. You're not going to hold yourself out there and say, hey, I'm an expert and you're new in the business. All you're doing is answering a common question to the folks. And here's what's going to happen. It's going to make you be approachable. Because if you got a question that more and more people are asking, chances are others are going to ask that question, want to ask that question, maybe haven't asked that question, but in the very least, they'll find it of interest. So make this list, keep this list. You want to rent out, so if you want to do a 2-minute video, and we're going to put a plug in over here, but you want to do a 2-minute video on a weekly basis, here's what I'd suggest you do. You could go rent out a studio. You could speak to John Richardson at QuickCast. He's got a truck, or he's got folks who can come over to your place of business and videotape. Or you can call up Don and Drake Media Network. You can rent out a studio. You want to be on camera? Fine. She's got a video room that you could do. You can do your YouTube videos. If you just want to do sound, just audio, soundproof room that you could use. You could use for that, voiceovers, whatever. So we got places for you to record things, or you could just do it right from home. Get yourself a camera, or just hold up your phone and videotape yourself. Make sure your background looks decent, all the rest of that kind of stuff. Even if it's a work in progress, it's all fine. But you have that list. Now, if you're going to go to a studio and you're going to pay to go to a studio and you can get it edited and all the rest of that stuff, go to that studio with a number of questions, depending upon how much time you're going to rent. So if you're going to rent the studio for 4 hours, 4 hours, that's a good amount of time. So that's 240 minutes. If you're going to do a 2-minute video each and every week, all right, you could do 120. You can't do 120. You're not going to keep going that consistently. And probably you couldn't even do 60. That would be a lot for you to do. Plus, you want to change your clothes every once in a while, too. All right, this way it doesn't look like you taped everything in the same day. But you could certainly, in a 4-hour period, if you're prepared, you could do 26 of them. Maybe the first time you do it, you only get 13 in because there's a whole lot of things that you need to know and learn, the rest of that kind of stuff. But if you're going to hire one of these folks for a 4-hour period of time, you could certainly do 13 if it's your first go round. I think you could do 26 if it's your second time doing these things. So that means you could rent a studio once, well, let's go 2, maybe 3 times in the course of a year. You're not spending that much money doing this thing. It's not a big dollar amount. You do want to get an intro, outro, and some of that stuff, which can be done very inexpensively, or you can make it fancier. That depends. That might be a money spend or not. But you could do those little 2-minute videos with very little studio time, a little bit of research time on your side by making that list. And now you have content. That's kind of easy to do. If you're just going to go into a studio and say, oh, I'm going to come up with 13 questions and then do it, and then do that on the fly, not going to happen. It's just not going to be that good. Go into that one prepared, not with written out answers, but you got to have questions that you can answer, of course, but questions, really succinct questions. Phrase it as a question. Recently, I've been asked, because there's so many changes in the automotive industry, what it's going to be like to sell cars over the next 5 or 10 years, or repair cars over the next 5 or 10 years as they become more and more of the electric cars. And here's my response. And you give a 2-minute response, 1 to 2 minute response on the whole thing. So now you got a video that's generally speaking going to be 2 to 3 minutes in length, maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter, something like that. You do 26 of them, boom, you've got weekly comment now for the next 6 months. You don't get into the studio after that one, just repurpose it. Assuming the questions are still appropriate questions, just redo it. just replay it again. You now have content. And every once in a while, go in there and take new stuff. Not a big deal, easy to do. The hard part, though, is here. It's here. It's keeping track of those questions as you go along and make it work that way. Now, if the questions are funny, you can get on a comedy stage. But that's a whole different topic. So you have content over there. You get content that's easy to create. You become the quote unquote expert. You get a chance to share your expertise. You get a chance to share your thoughts. You then become knowable, likable, and trustworthy because you are answering common questions. You're not making up these big fancy questions. You're not going crazy with anything. You're not coming up with these really long, drawn out responses to anything either. Just really short and quick. Like this whole video. I probably could have done this in 2 minutes. All right. So you have that. So that's one way to get content. All right. Another one, you can just Google it. Just Google. What are the most common questions the automotive industry gets? You get that kind of thing. The problem there is that it's not specific to you. All right. It's generic. It's very industry related. You do that. Here's another way to get content. All right. And it takes a little bit more work, time, energy, effort in order to make the thing work. Maybe not money, maybe a little bit. It depends upon your own capabilities. Get yourself on other people's podcasts. It's not that hard to do. There are so many podcasts that are out there that with people that are looking for guests. So go out there. I need a guest. I think that's the name of the group that's on Facebook. I need a guest. It's pretty much that simple. Go on there, see where you can be a guest. You become a guest. They're going to ask you questions about you, your industry, and stuff like that. Let them come up with the questions. You give them guidance, all the rest of that stuff. Give them some talking points that you might want to have them bring up. And then you have the video. Now, granted, it's going to be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour in length, depending upon the length of the show. But if you can edit it, now all of a sudden, you can then take the question that they ask you and your response, give them credit, of course, and then put it out there. You can now share it out there. Recently, I was a guest on XYZ podcast. I was asked this question, thought it would be appropriate. Boom. You now have content you can deliver. The question really is, as Arthur was bringing up, why do all of this stuff? What's the purpose of it? What are you trying to accomplish? Well, that really becomes it. What are you trying to accomplish? Right? You're trying to, well, really, I can't answer that question, can I? You need to answer that question. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to grow your market? Are you trying to broaden the amount of people that see your content? Well, if you're trying to do that, then your question is going to be a little bit more general in nature that you want to cover, right? If it's a very specific market, let's assume you only serve the Suffolk County, New York market or something that's really that close. Well, you want to know something? Now, I think your questions need to be much, much more specific to this area, to whatever laws are applicable, to whatever's very appropriate over here for you. So that you need to be a little bit more specific with. Are you trying to gain customers? Maybe you want to talk price there a little bit, how you're more competitive than other people. Maybe that's the questions that you want to focus on, not the generic, how is the industry changing? But how are you staying competitive in your industry with the cost of different items going up? So think about what the overall you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to accomplish from an overall standpoint. But in the beginning stages of this, Doug, good afternoon. Karen, good afternoon to you. But in the beginning stages of this thing, just take those questions in, and then eventually you can categorize them and do it that way. Hey, maybe it's just general information on the first week of the month. Maybe it's something very specific. Maybe it's something technical. You do it on Tuesday, Technical Tuesdays. You share something very specific about how a battery-operated car works. There was a radio show I was listening to today. They were talking about the pickup trucks, and how the torque is different in a battery-operated car versus a combustion engine car. I would venture to say many of us wouldn't know what the difference is and how important it is, and depending upon how much weight's being pulled, if it's a trailer, it's in the bed of the truck, things like that. Might be interesting stuff. Very specific to your truck buyers, though, that would care about that, not just the overall what's going on in the battery market. So you got that one. So it's Judy Carter. Let me just pop that over here. Let's share to Judy Carter. We'll give her a little plug in here. Chrome tab, Judy Carter. Yeah, that one. So she's written quite a few books. You can look it up. It's Judy, Judy Carter, Carter. She is available for all kinds of training as a comic. Also, but you could also pick up this book, go to the library, get it over here, maybe get an audio book, anything like that. But she's been around for quite a while doing these things. She also has a podcast too. So you can look that up. Maybe we'll get her on one of these days, and that should be a lot of fun to go and do. All right, let's go back over here. Let's remove that. We're back over here with us. We're good there. We're good there. Oh, there we go. We got a little conversation going back and forth. All right, what do we got? 22 minutes into this thing. So here's the story too. What if you are not an expert and you don't know the answers to these things? Now what do? You bring in an expert. Easy enough to do, right? So let's stay with the automotive industry. What if you have an auto dealership and your focus, your main priority is selling cars? And the question you get is that question, hey, over the next 5 to 10 years, more and more cars are going to be electric. How are you going to handle that from a owner's standpoint, from an auto dealership standpoint? Like you say, you're going to bring in more cars. You're going to sell electric cars. But you might want to say, too, is that we're going to be continually bringing in newer cars, some just as models, but newer cars that are the electric vehicles. But since this question has come up so frequently, what we decided to do is bring in one of the manufacturers of the electric vehicles, or someone who is a battery supplier, or someone who does repairs on, maybe your shop does repairs, maybe not, on these things, and bring them on as a guest. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to wind up expanding your market in a couple of different ways. You don't need to be an expert in how a battery car not operates, yes, but how batteries are made and the recharging capabilities and how much that changes. They're experts in that thing. You have to be a resource, not an expert, right? You have expertise in some area, but you don't need to be an expert on the entire industry. So you bring in someone who does have expertise in different facets of the industry and make it work that way. Bring them on as a guest. Yeah, not going to be able to do that in 2 minutes, but you can do a little 5-minute spotlight, right? 5 minutes or less, little question. Today you're here with, we have one question for you today. And the question is, what is torque? Does a battery or an electric vehicle offer the same amount of torque as a combustion vehicle? How does that work? And then let them answer the question. You're good to go there. So that's another way of getting content. All right. Or the third way, and this is what I'm doing today, a little bit later on, is find someone who knows something. Take a class, do something like that. So I kind of focused a little bit here on the automotive industry. That's kind of on top of mind for myself at this at this juncture. But it's easy to do this stuff. All you need to do is prepare. Big thing, write down those questions, right? So here was the thing, is that so now I've been asked to come back, and I'll be doing the announcing out at Capleton one more time with the racetrack, Nut Street. And those races will begin again toward the end of August and go out through October. So last year I did it, and in April I did it also. But I've come to realize that I just don't know as much about this thing as I'd like to, which kind of plays into, am I an expert in it? Absolutely not. I'm comfortable with the microphone, so that's good. I could share my expertise with that, my comfort level there. But the actual drag racing and how that operates and things that would be appropriate to say or not appropriate to say, different things I could comment on, definitely need to brush up on that. So gone out, and this afternoon I'll be taking class through the, believe it or not, through the NHRA. Really surprised they're sponsoring this thing, but hey, so be it. They are kind of curious as to why they're doing that. Maybe they're looking to build their brand out a little bit more. Maybe they understand that there's so many local tracks, and in order to keep these local tracks going, interest needs to be made and continued in these local tracks. So perhaps that's why they're doing that. I remember back in the day, Richard Petty, Bobby Allison. This goes way back. They came out to some of the local tracks here on Long Island. That was the coolest thing in the world. And man, it was great. It was great to see these superstars come to a local place. Now, you can't have these top fuel drags to show up at an eighth of a mile track. It just doesn't work that way. So they need to have, or maybe the NHRA is looking at about how do you generate more interest in the local tracks. Well, you'll find someone who's got a mouth and is willing to put a little bit more time, energy, and effort into it. So that's what I'll be doing. So here's my question to you. Are you constantly learning and pursuing knowledge within your industry, whatever it might be, even though it's not something that's a pure focus? So my pure focus is not about drag racing. It's not like I want to become an announcer on, for drag racing and stuff like that. I'm trying to get a whole load of fun. And there are a few different things I definitely enjoy about it. I love the family aspect, the entertainment side of it. I love the fact that and I do believe that a local track, motorsports park or drag racing track, whatever, will be a great catalyst for the high school vocational programs, the auto programs, as that continues on. So there's reasons for doing it, not just pure fun. But I want to be good. I want to be as good as I possibly can be. And I would assume you do too. When you do that podcast of yours, don't you want to be as good as you possibly can? Carry the right amount of confidence. Deliver content that's appropriate. That's why you need to spend the time, energy, and effort prior to recording something and getting those questions all set. Making sure you know what you want to talk about. Make sure you are clear as to what you are doing it for. Are you doing it to build clients? Or are you doing it to show your expertise? Or are you doing it to show that you're approachable? Why? I'm doing it out there because I want to show them a couple of different things. One, that I'm serious about doing this, and I'm willing to put the time, energy, and effort into it. That won't be seen by everybody that's there. Two, it's like, maybe this does grow a little bit. And we do actually do a live video stream from there where it's consistent, which then means that I have to talk all the time. No dead air. Here, very little dead air. I stop for 3 seconds, 5 seconds. That's one thing. Out there, can't stop for much more than that. Granted, the cars are racing on track. You get a couple of seconds to see what's going on, but it needs to be a constant flow. So that'll change up. Try to go for 4 hours with a constant flow of information and talk about something that's appropriate. So I know I need to brush up on those things. So that's what I'm going to do. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to improve your knowledge of your industry? Right? And what are you going to do in order for you to show your clients and your prospects and your referral partners and strategy partners or whatever that you really care? Let them know. Let them know that you're putting a little bit more effort into it than just winging it. There's a time and a place for winging it, but not that. Not when you're mapping out a strategy. Put a little effort into the whole thing. It'll definitely pay off. So thanks, folks, for joining us here today. Definitely a bunch of changes on the horizon, including the backdrop, and then including this. And then maybe we'll take voice lessons. This way we talk a little bit more like a racing announcer, because we are excited about what the future holds. Enjoy the ride, my friends. And remember, speak well, speak often, and live inspired. You just might bring a lot more people along for the ride than you ever imagined. All right, bring on the tomato. And we also now have music that's been added to this, which is pretty cool. And we got a little rock music.